What's happening, folks? Welcome to another edition of Bison Break Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Black Jr. Today we have another great show ahead of us. We're going to speak with Daniel Marks. So today we're going to talk about Howard University basketball, NIL, strategic partnerships, and so much more. It's an exciting show you don't want to miss. Stay tuned, stay connected. I'll check y'all in a minute. Today, folks, we had the honor to speak with Howard University's Chief Program Officer, Daniel Marks. So let's welcome him to the Bison Break Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Man, I'm great. I'm glad you came on. I definitely am excited to have you on here. Definitely wanted to be able to talk about, you and some of the endeavors that you have going on with Howard University basketball, because we've seen a lot of great traction with the men's basketball team. So I definitely would love to hear things that you have going on and things that we can see in the future. But let's kind of start from the beginning so people can, I can introduce you to everyone. So just tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up at? What were some of your biggest influences and how did you start liking basketball?
Yeah, so I was born in Washington, D.C., lived here for a few years, then moved to Maryland for a couple of years, but mainly was raised in New Jersey. My dad and my grandfather were both huge sports fans. So I inherited, the love of basketball, football, baseball. Like we would, always go to games. That was kind of what we did when I was a kid, whether it was New York Mets spring training down in Florida, visiting my grandparents, or, had New Jersey Nets season tickets from the time I was like 9 till I graduated high school. U.S. Open tennis, Giants football, like just love sports. Grew up dreaming of playing at the highest level, realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to be the case. Played basketball.
You aren't the only one, Daniel.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, I realized when I was doing those inside nurse shots in the house and I realized I couldn't be Moses Malone playing for the Wizards or the Bullets back then, I had to figure something else out.
Yeah. So, just always loved sports, played basketball and tennis primarily growing up. Went to Vanderbilt University, was a student manager there for the basketball team for 4 years. Got to work with 3 future NBA players, John Jenkins, Jeffrey Taylor, and Festus Ezeli. Did some internships in college and sports and really, wanted to find my way onto the team side. So went from Vanderbilt to working for the Milwaukee Bucks in a variety of roles for 9 years. Got to be part of the NBA championship in 2021, which was an amazing experience.
I'm sure.
And then decided to make a change and get into college athletics in the summer of 2022 and have been at Howard ever since. Okay.
When you were at Vanderbilt, what kind of made you looking at basketball to a certain extent? Because I know that you were at Vanderbilt and you were doing some things there and some activities there. But what kind of made you look at basketball as I can't play basketball, but this is something that I can be on the operational side. What kind of drove you along that lines?
So honestly, it started with there was like a Facebook group for the class of 2013. And one of the basketball managers posted that they were looking for freshman managers. And I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to do it, but I had lunch with them and we got along pretty well. So I started out doing it part-time and helping out around the office and watching practice occasionally. And then started doing it full-time my sophomore year and just kind of continued to grow in the role beyond that. So it was really kind of just that cold outreach of them looking for people and then me meeting with the guy and, deciding it was something I would enjoy doing.
Wow. So you could do more with social media than just actually liking pictures.
For sure.
That your career kind of was birthed off that little small post. And now, fast forward now, you went to the, was at Vanderbilt, went to the Bucks and was able to experience that championship, and now what you're doing at Howard University. That's extraordinary, man. Your time, how did you end up going to the Bucks from there?
So it's a funny story. The summer after my freshman year, I worked for a basketball magazine called Dime Magazine in New York City, and that was the summer 2010 when LeBron left for Miami. And
Ooh,
I wrote a story saying that the Bucks had an underrated offseason that I didn't think was getting enough attention because of LeBron going to Miami. And it got picked up by the Bucks Twitter account. And the GM of the team at the time, John Hammond, had reached out to me about the story, saying that he had liked the story. And, he thought I was some up-and-coming writer, not a college freshman doing an internship. But we were able to strike up a relationship. Over the years, they invited me to observe some draft workouts in the summer of 2012, and then just kind of stayed in touch and continued to build a relationship. And they hired me as an intern when I graduated.
So when you wrote that article, who was actually on the Bucks team at that time?
So it was like Brandon Jennings, Andrew Bogut. They had signed Drew Gooden, re-signed John Salmons, drafted Larry Sanders.
You're at the Bucks, and you watch. When you initially started writing at the Bucks, this team was a young, up-and-coming team that you thought that didn't get enough attention. But then now we draft Giannis, and you start seeing the team change. What was that like to watch this team move from that standpoint and to becoming world champions?
Yeah, I mean, it was like night and day. When I first got there, the front office was really small. Senator Herb Kohl was the owner of the team. Very much a kind of mom and pop shop vibe. You had employees who had been there 30 plus years. Kind of things were outdated. It was a very kind of there was not a lot of excitement about the Bucks. It was just an afterthought, even in Milwaukee. My first year, we went 15-67, and there was probably some games where there was maybe like 3,000, 4,000 people there. And it's then the team got sold that following spring, and the new ownership injected a lot of money and energy into the organization. We drafted Jabari Parker, hired Jason Kidd as the coach, and made the playoffs my second year. So there was a real, kind of transformation right away. But, being more intentional about the team in the community and investing in the practice facility, investing in a new arena, kind of making it more of like a professionally run organization as opposed to like a mom and pop kind of, outfit.
What is that like to do it, especially in Milwaukee, and knowing that you had that 15-win season and then now you're the world champion? Explain that, just winning the championship, and what was that like, that process like?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, just kind of the growth from that 15-win team. And then, we played game 6 of the finals in Milwaukee, and there was 60,000 people outside the arena waiting, at a watch party to watch and celebrate. Like, it was packed. The city was on fire. It was electric. The Bucks, we were the talk of the town, and to be able to see kind of where the organization went from so few fans and so much dead energy around the team to being on top of the NBA world was really incredible.
Now you had you experienced this world championship, and then Howard University created this position or have this position open. What attracted you to come to Howard University?
Yeah, so I'd been with the Bucks ever since I graduated college. So I was with them for 9 years. It was a great run. I just felt like at the end, I'd kind of reached my peak there. I didn't see a ton of opportunities for growth based on the org chart and the way that things were kind of moving. So I saw all these changes happening in college athletics with the transfer portal and NIL and athlete activism. And it was something I wanted to be a part of and thought I could, offer a unique skill set to a program. So met with a number of programs, got connected to Coach Blakeney through one of his former players at Harvard, Kyle Casey, who played for the Bucks G League team. And, Coach and I met at the Final Four in New Orleans and kind of hit it off. Our first conversation was like a 4-hour conversation just about his vision for what Howard would be, what he wanted to do on the court, how he wanted to elevate the basketball program in the same way that the university had been elevated in all other areas, and, what he wanted to do in the community and how he could utilize a role like myself. And kind of just at that moment, it was like, I want to work with him and help him actualize this vision that he has for Howard.
You are the chief program officer. This was a new position for Howard. So explain exactly what this position is and and how it is impacting Howard University?
Yeah, I do a lot of different things, roster management, evaluating talent, both on our own roster and incoming talent, whether that's transfers or high school players, oversee our NIL initiatives. So working with our NIL collective, the Mecca Society, hunting deals for players both on campus and in DC, as well as nationally, media, branding, day-to-day operations, oversee our student manager program. There's a lot of different hats, but the end goal is to elevate the program in the way that Coach Blakey wants it to be elevated, both within the Howard community and nationally.
So do you sleep?
Yeah, I try. Yeah.
Just sounds like you're doing a lot of different things over there, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone at Howard kind of has to wear a lot of different hats because it's not the most the highest staff, both athletic department and individual teams. Yeah.
With well, I'm gonna jump for a second because I know I've talked to other coaches and they've mentioned one of the things is like Power 5 schools and so forth that they're able to give a lot more scholarships and they're able to do different things along that line. How does that impact you in terms of recruiting and so forth?
Yeah, so scholarship-wise, we're able to offer for basketball the same number of scholarships as Power 5 schools. Some of the other sports, the non-revenue sports, are going to be different, but we're able to offer the full amount. I think the biggest difference for us is obviously the NIL numbers that we can offer. Players are getting 6-7-figure deals now in the transfer portal. That's not something currently we can, truly compete with. But we're working towards being able to do so. And then I think just from a, resource standpoint, a recovery room, a new training room, locker rooms, like those types of things, like that amenities are the things that, you're not going to get here that you would get at a Power 5. But I think we make up for it in the way that we invest in the players and their success on and off the court with the networks that we provide them, the opportunities, to make an impact and grow their platform. So we're able to make it up in other ways, but the physical, we have a brand new practice gym, which is fantastic, but the rest of the amenities need to catch up to that building.
Okay. Well, and you kind of jumped into a little bit about NIL. Explain NIL and how that is impacting just sports overall, like some of the positive things and maybe some of the negative effects that we're seeing with NIL, because it seems like it's a big conversation. When I'm turning on ESPN and all these different places, everyone's talking about NIL. How is that? Talk about that from that standpoint and talk about it in relation to Howard University.
Yeah, I mean, NIL has changed a number of things. If you're looking at the NBA draft, right, a lot of these players that would have left school early to leave for the draft and maybe been a second-round pick are now going to stay in college and get NIL money over $1 million, which is, better than a non-guaranteed NBA contract for rookies. So, you see it impacting the number of players that enter the draft. You see it impacting the level of attrition, within the everyone is, regardless of how much success you have, everyone's always looking now kind of for the next opportunity. So we, have only 3 players, maybe 4 returning next year from our roster this year. And that's the norm at a lot of places, the roster churn. It's just, there's very little continuity year to year because everyone is seeking NIL or seeking a new situation, and you can do it as many times as you want.
Are you noticing that they're staying in college longer, but they're hopping around to different universities in college? Is that
correct?
Something?
Yeah, you're seeing guys stay in college for 5 years and play at 4 different universities, or 4 years and 4 different universities. Like Bryce Harris, who just announced he's coming back for his graduate year at Howard. He'll be at Howard, for 5 years. That is a complete anomaly in this day and age.
Yeah, because usually, when I, most back in the day, so to speak, usually have someone coming out 19 to 21 is usually that age that people are coming out of college and going into the pros. But now what I'm hearing is that, you can have an older person, 24, 25, coming into the league. So NIL is impacting things along that line too. So that we're getting older people in the league now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's no, if you're not a projected lottery pick, a lot of times it's just better to come back to school.
Let me ask you this, because I know I was having a conversation with someone the other day. How do you think that is helping them or hurting some of the athletes going into the league? Because, you don't have the Tom Brady effect as much any longer, that someone's going to sit and wait their turn to kind of take, be the guy, so to speak, and that player development by being in that system, if you're bouncing around, you're being taught almost a new system every place that you're going, so to speak. How do you think that's affecting people from a developmental standpoint, or affecting the game from a developmental standpoint in the pros?
Good question. I'm not really sure. I think the effects of that are still being kind of fleshed out. I would say the biggest thing is you're probably going to see the number of college seniors drafted go way up. Because historically, if you were good enough to play in the NBA as a freshman, you left. If you were good enough to leave as a sophomore, you left. Now you have guys that are good enough, but it's like, okay, I could be the 40th pick, or I could go make $3 million at UCLA or Michigan or whatever it is. And they're like, okay, I want to do that and stay in college. So I think you're going to get more mature prospects. You're definitely going to see the average age of drafted prospects go up, I think, especially this year.
Well, help me understand this. What is the Mecca Society?
The Mecca Society is an NIL collective that works with Howard University athletic teams to provide name, image, and likeness opportunities for student athletes. So they're able to be compensated by doing appearances in the community, by promoting the Mecca Society on social media, by activating, different events with fans, whether that's online or in person. Like, NIL, as long as there's some form of a quid pro quo where they post, they do an appearance, there's some type of engagement, it just allows student athletes to monetize on their name, image, and likeness. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk and, this is pay for play. Some of these guys, their marketing value is not $3 million, but their value to the team on the court is $3 million, or on the field is $3 million. And, the NCAA so far has said we can't allow NIL to be pay for play because that would infer that the athletes are employees, and they don't want to be referred to as employees because that means they'd have to collectively bargain and athletes would unionize. And so there's all sorts of song and dance in a lot of ways, but a lot of these guys are getting, money in the transfer portal to transfer to other universities or to stay at their respective universities because of their abilities on or off the field.
And what I've kind of heard too is that now they're thinking about having a salary cap for NIL. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, so there's a proposed settlement called the House Settlement, which would, if settled, would allow schools to directly share revenue with their student athletes. Okay. And the revenue would be capped at $20.5 million for your entire athletic department. So some schools may only share $500,000 of revenue. Some schools may share $5 million. Some schools may share, you can use it all on football. You can use it all on men's basketball, but most schools are going to probably do something like 70 to 75% on football, 15% on men's basketball, and then the rest on like women's basketball and some of the other, revenue sports.
How do you think that would impact Howard University or HBCUs overall?
I mean, the revenue, models here, because the big schools have incredible revenue because of their TV deals and the media rights. So they're getting $20 to $40 million just from media rights. And that's before taking in sponsorships and ticket sales and merchandise sales. So like right off the bat, and the MEAC conference and the SWAC conference, their TV deals are minuscule in comparison to those. So that lack of media revenue is really, really hampers the ability to share, high level amounts of revenue with student athletes. I would say that's the biggest difference between Power 5. And obviously they have bigger stadiums and they can sell more tickets and, charge higher prices, but the media revenue is really a huge
that's the ball game. I wanted to ask you, what is the importance of Bison Express in giving back to Howard University athletics?
Yeah, I think Bison Express has been great. They have a committed group of people, Tom Payne, Bruce Williams, Judge Larry Banks, like people that really, love Howard and want to see success at Howard across the board. I think it's really important because the thing I've learned in 3 years here is there's not a ton of alumni whose experience at Howard or after Howard is shaped by their relationship to the athletic teams. And what I mean by that is if you're an Ohio State alum, a huge part of campus life was going to football games, being in Ohio Stadium. And after the fact, like you live and breathe every Saturday with the Buckeyes. And, their coach got death threats because they were losing to Michigan. Like there's, there's this level of care and like desire. Whereas a lot of people at Howard, they want to see us do well. But the basketball team, because there was a real period after A.B. Williamson in the, 80s and early 90s till Coach Blakeney of non-success. And so going to games at Burr and being in the gym wasn't really a part of the student experience. And then following the team hasn't really been part of their alumni experience until we've really made concerted efforts to kind of do that. But, having some alums that are devoted and, want to contribute and want to help is definitely, appreciated. I think
now that you've been here at Howard University for the last 2 to 3 years, how has Howard University impacted your life since then?
Howard's been great. I mean, it's opened a lot of doors, I think. Just a really unique campus experience. Coach, through our student manager program, we have the largest student manager program in the country. Coach doesn't believe in turning any interested students away from the opportunity to get job and resume building experience. So, we've had over like 100 student managers over the last couple of years and helping with social media and equipment and operations and on-court. And, most of those managers, because Howard is a predominantly female campus, are female. So, you'll come to practice and there'll be more women than men at our practices, and they'll be doing the clock and handing out the water and mopping up the sweat. And then just kind of, we got to go to the White House last year to present Kamala Harris with a 2023 MEAC championship ring. And while we were there, the receptionist for the Oval Office found out we were there, and she was a Howard alum, and she gave us a tour of the Oval Office, which was, not planned, but, to just kind of have those doors opened up and be in rooms like that has been really, really impactful.
Just, as we close things out on this podcast today, we always want to be able to allow our guests to be able to, talk about maybe some of the things that they're doing or any business activities that we can possibly promote or shed light on. So the floor is yours. Is there anything that you would love to discuss that we can follow you and things along that line?
Yeah, so I partnered with a couple different groups. One is called Sports Business Ventures, which is designed to help young professionals navigate a career in the sports industry. I'm one of their mentors in their mentor marketplace, providing structured one-on-one coaching and advising on people looking to break into sports. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Daniel Marks, and there's a button to book an appointment with me through Sports Business Ventures. And then I work with another company called Get in the Game 101, which is a company more focused on people getting into basketball specifically. And we do a couple different courses throughout the year, a Final Four course, an NBA draft course, a summer league course, just to kind of help people to learn how to break in to sports.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, thank you for joining the Bison Break Podcast today. We definitely appreciate you sharing your experience, talking about how university basketball, NIL, and some strategic partnerships we had. Thank you for joining today, and we definitely appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you for watching another edition of Bison Break Podcast. We'd like to thank our guest, Daniel Marks, for jumping in on the podcast and sharing his story and talk about Howard University basketball. Be sure to continue to follow us at Bison Express or visit us on our website at bisonexpress.org. I'm your host, Rob Black Jr., and I hope to see you on the other side of your goals.